Just gonna do that until we're actually live. Alrighty, are we here? Are we here? Are we live? Have we done it? I think we have. Hello everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for being here. It looks like we're all good. Looks like everything is doing great. Okay. I was having trouble with the bandit camera. I'm trying to... Aww, I found her. She's so cute. I found little doggo. I found little doggo. I found little doggo in my room. Yes, yes. Alright, I don't know why it's not showing up. Maybe I just need to reactivate it? I don't know. Why is it not working? Doggo camera, why you no work? Oh, okay. I did it another time, and for some reason the same thing I've done 3 times already magically worked now. So there's Doggo, as you can observe, looking at me, being very cute, cleaning her little paw. There we go. Doggo camera activated. We are now ready for streaming. Our streaming is now ready to officially begin. Thank you so much to the early crew, the folks that show up early to hang out and help us all have a good time. We love it. We love the early crew. Hello, everyone. Hello, Deji. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Dale. We got a lot of D names, I noticed. I don't know how that ended up happening. Sheer Coinky Dink. Hello, Kylie. Hello, Twixie. Hello, Grace. Hello, Paleo Kitty. Hello, Anne. Hello, Tom S. Hello, Vincent. Hello. Also, if you hear noises in the background, one of my roommates is currently assembling a piece of furniture. So if you hear a drill, don't worry, it's fine. FYI. Hello, Hellhound. Hello, Erica. Hello, Charlotte. Hello, Alexandria. Hello, Nathan. Hello, Kantra. I had to pause for that one for a second. Hello, Katrisa. Hello, Zunicki. Hello, KB. Hello, World Tree. Hello, Rachel. Hello, Feels Violet. Hello, Commoner Trespasser. Ooh, that's quite the name. Hello, Hellatrix. That's a good one. I love how there's so many variations on Dominatrix now. There's like Hellatrix, Dominatrix, Creatrix, Satanatrix, I think maybe is how I actually never had to say that one out loud before. There's a lot of variations on it. I love it. Hello, SK Love. Hello, Angel. Hello, A. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. So glad you could make it. And yes, just for the record, feel free to celebrate the holiday. The Irish certainly do. Yes, I completely forgot today was going to be St. Patrick's Day. So I am doing nothing St. Patrick's related. So if you were expecting St. Patrick's Day conduct from me, it's not. I have green on my chair and in my background. Does that count? I know. I love it when she can hear me talking and she's just staring and listening. It's so sweet. I don't normally get to see her looking at me, so it's so cute. But hi everyone, how we doing? So so glad you guys can make it on this beautiful, wonderful Friday. We do these streams every Friday at 6 o'clock Pacific time, and we hang out and we just chat. So if you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. The mods are here to help everyone figure out what's going on and just generally keep the chat safe and fun and all of that good stuff. This is an 18 plus only stream, so you're not at least 18. Please don't be here because we generally talk about adult topics, sex, relationships, BDSM, kink, polyamory, all those things. I know technically there are people that are minors that do polyamorous things, but I sort of feel like if you can't drive a car yet, you probably shouldn't be doing poly, but that's my line for what I think is a general good gauge for like, are you ready for polyamory? Is have you gotten a driver's license yet? And that's probably pretty arbitrary, but that's how I think about it. And yeah, that's basically what we do here. It's interactive Q&A. I generally do like suggest some topics in the initial title, and then almost always we end up talking about completely different things, which is totally fine. But I just like to give people a guidepost for maybe if you've been wanting to ask a question about something, but you're like, oh, it doesn't really fit what we're doing. You can do that. And also, she has a bed right there, and she's just going to make a bed in a completely different spot on the ground because... Is that not what dog do? Clearly it is what dog do. So, enjoy the, I don't know, what's it called? Is there a name for like when you're watching a zoo feed and it's like you're watching zoo animals live their natural lives? Like it's like a natural animal behavior observation thing. That's what we're doing here today. That's what we got going on. So, yeah, so that's basically everything you need to know. There's rules and an FAQ down below if you want to make sure you're knowing what to do here. Generally speaking, the big things is just like don't spam the chat. I answer questions in the order they come in, so please don't ask like 5 times in a row because that's not going to make it any more likely to answer your question. It's just going to make me mad and annoyed, and then I'm not going to answer it on purpose. And besides that, just, you know, we don't really give advice on like mental health topics or medical stuff just because I am not prepared or trained or anything to be able to do that. But I can direct you to resources if you're like, where can I find a kink aware therapist or whatever? Like I can kind of help with that. But all right, now we gotta change the angle here on the dog. There we go. Sleeping. She likes sleeping in that corner, I've noticed. I don't know. That used to be where my makeup stand was, and now I moved my makeup stand. So now that's just like her corner. I had no idea that she would like that. But yeah, all right, let's get into it. Let's see what y'all have been talking about in the chit chat. Oh, thank you so much. Yes. Let's see. Furry trucking. Michael Alvin. That is the longest username I think we've had for a super chat before. Thank you. Yeah, if you guys want to make sure to answer your question, by the way, super chat like this one or going through Streamlabs, it'll read your chat message as it does right here. Good example for that. And then I will answer your question right away if you want to skip the line. It's how you do that. All right. So, yeah, let's go and get into it. I'll answer some questions. I'll let people know we're streaming on Twitter. When I get to that, I'm assuming volume, everything sounds like it's good. I don't remember seeing any messages about that, like being off. I feel like my face is a little bit dark. There we go. That looks better. All right, I'm actually gonna move my chair. You guys like my new sweater I got? It's a small, but it's huge. It's like I could wear this as a dress, and I love that because this is how I dressed in middle school. So I had one giant sweater I wore all of the time, constantly. And, you know, sometimes middle school just be like that, you know? All right. I remember, I think it was like a basketball sweater or something. It was like completely just like something from my middle school that I just had. All right. Let's get into it. Still thinking about that sword guy pickup artist. I'm just imagining him picking up ladies being like, hello there. Want to test my big sword at your place? It's exactly what he does. I think actually, and in the video that I made about that subject, I talk about this a little bit. He definitely markets himself as being like the low-key, low-energy seduction pickup artist where it's about like putting out chill vibes in your seduction as opposed to being super try-hard with like close-up magic and stuff, but also he's kind of like low-key, high-key try-harding, if that makes sense. Like, he's trying to not try hard, but he still does try hard at the same time. I don't think that makes any sense, but like, that's the energy, right? Oh, thank you, Boober Nova. Thank you for the super chat. We love it. Isn't there like a big furry convention going on right now? I know that Pup Amp and What's the Safe Word is there currently. I've never actually been to a furry convention. I have been at conventions with furries though, so I don't know if that counts. Oh, it's a business account. Yay, no worries. Saw the door frame tweets. Would love to know what are some other newbie dom moves. We will get to that. I want to be fair. I'm going to bookmark this one as like maybe even being a video day. Oh, also, I got my nails done at like a salon in the first time for forever. Like I actually I was doing yard work or something, or maybe dishes, and I chipped my thumb nails, and like it broke like way down here, which is like generally where my nail tends to break on my thumb, is it breaks way low down. So I ended up like getting my nails done in an actual salon, which is not a normal thing for me, and so far I love it. I'm kind of worried it might damage my natural nails, but we'll kind of see how this goes. This may end up being a regular thing because it actually wasn't that expensive. I was surprised. Like even having to get like the repair work done on my thumbnails, like I thought, oh, this is going to be like $60, and it wasn't. It was like way more affordable than that. So I was like, might do this more. I might want to do, I really love to grow these out and do like a super long, like spiky almond shaped like black nails. Like that would be my ideal, but like we're rocking the red today because I didn't want to just go for black immediately because I thought, well, I feel like I should get a color. I can't just only get black all the time, you know? Anyways, completely unrelated. I really do not think what the sword guy said counts as sexy communication. That's true. That's true. I think he doesn't know how to do sexy communication, and that's why he's a pickup artist, is because he couldn't communicate in a way the ladies liked. The sword pickup line was cringe. Spot on accuracy, Evie. The try hard is there, but failing. Yeah. Try harding I don't think ever works. I feel he got to put in a medium amount of effort is ideal. You know, it's a very Goldilocks situation. Because if you don't put in enough, people aren't going to think you care that much about them, and so they're not going to reflect that energy back. But if you try too hard, you look desperate. So you got to be somewhere in the middle, I feel like. Oh, I don't know about a pet play convention, but CapCon for ABDL is next week. Oh, that sounds interesting. I've never been to a pet play convention. There used to be a convention that I think is no longer a thing now because of COVID or other reasons. And I know that they did like a combination. It was mostly ABDL and DDLG, but it was also a little bit of pet play as well. There was actually a really interesting conversation on Reddit the other day that I'm planning to make a video about, which is partly why pet play is in the title. That's about the difference between a baby girl daddy relationship and a daddy dom little girl relationship. And the conversation about it sort of felt like so navel gazing and insular that I'm like, does it even really matter? But I think there is something to be said for the importance of having like a differentiation between different labels, and maybe there isn't really a big difference between like baby girl and daddy relationships and like daddy dom little girl. And I think what the person meant by baby girl was, I sort of read what they were saying as being like, well, I'm not a little because I don't like age play or like sippy cups or tutus or whatever. But then I sort of, from what they were describing, I got more of like a middle maybe vibe, like more of a like sassy teenager energy maybe. But like you can have that energy and not do age play or do like little or middle role play, you know? Like you can just be sassy and still be an adult in an adult mindset, but be sort of like, I don't want to go to my room. Like, you know, you can still be that energy. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I'd love to know y'all's thoughts about like where you see the difference between like baby girl and like little girl. If you see a difference between those labels and like how you would use them and maybe what that means for a relationship. Because I definitely want to make a video talking about that. Because I think I've seen like requests sometimes in comments for videos talking about like princesses or like baby girl dynamics, and I think this is maybe a good way to have that conversation. But anyways, let me know what y'all are thinking. Also, you guys can barely see my dog now because she has decided to sleep somewhere completely different. Oh, she's right next to the fan now. She's like nose to the fan. She's so stinking cute. I love her. Love her every day. All right. Question. My partner wants me to try doming after years of only being a sub. I'm cool with switching. It's just really new territory. Thoughts? Okay, so you're cool with switching. You've been their submissive or like done like scenes as a bottom, maybe at least, let's say. And now they want you to dom them, and it's new territory. And I think this is actually a really common scenario to end up in, like when you've been in a longer term BDSM relationship. I think a lot of people sort of assume that the default and the majority of people in the scene are like just one or the other, right? The only dom or top, the only submit, the only bottom. And it's sort of weird or unusual to be a switch. And that's sort of the exception as opposed to the standard. And I think the longer you're in a BDSM relationship, you're in the community, I think a lot of people end up finding their switch side. And I think part of it is the way we treat switches in the community, which is especially when you're new. It's like, how could you even know if you're really a switch or not? You're brand new. And then also, especially if you're a femme presenting person, like usually you get invalidated as being a switch because it's like, well, women are supposed to be submissive and blah, blah, blah. And I guess it's just really silly stuff, honestly. Just silly Billy stuff. And I think that like when you're trying to move, and especially, I don't know if you had like a contract or rules or anything, it can be difficult to move from a relationship where you originally had a lot of structure and you were, you know, used to following orders for them, and you have a very particular way of maybe seeing your partner where like they're the dominant and you're the submissive, and like that is your relationship, to suddenly like flipping that on its head. So I think you have to sort of respect that in terms of, yes, it can be more difficult to move from one relationship style to the other because like you're kind of trying to change your whole mentality about the relationship. But if it was more just in scenes, I think it is easier to change that. I think one is because your partner is proposing this idea, I think it's worth investigating what they want and like what they mean by like you being their dom. Like, do they want rules and structure? Is this a scene thing? Is it a sex thing? Is it like they have maybe a specific fetish they want to do with you, like latex or cuckolding or foot worship, or, you know, is it something like that where maybe they have a fetish that's connected to a particular thing? Oh, thank you, Twixie.
I'm curious if the baby girl, daddy versus DDLG thing would be where the former is sort of setting the scene without necessarily taking a dom role. Like asking daddy to get ice cream, take you to the park, etc., like a normal small child would.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious if baby girl, daddy versus DDLG thing would be where the former is sort of setting the scene without necessarily taking on a dom role. Like asking daddy to get ice cream, take you to the park like a normal child would. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have to reread what that Reddit thread said as well about this. But yeah, I don't sort of generally just like what my thoughts are about like switching roles. So I think it's definitely worth looking into, okay, what about this is my partner kind of looking to get from this? And where does that overlap with my comfort level, right? Like, are they wanting to be like a super heavy bottom and like they want to have that shit beat out of them? Or maybe they're looking more for like rules and structure, or they, again, it could be a fetish thing, and like which things are you comfortable doing? Because that all really vary. And then it hasn't popped up yet on the screen, but Booper Nova also asked, curious, most furry pet communities are very male gender based. Is there any gender or DS specific roles? Awkward, I know, I'm a rare type of pet dom. Let me think about this for a second. Most furry pet communities are very male gender based. Is there any gender or DS specific roles? I think within the BDSM community, things tend to be pretty open. I think alpha usually will get used as like a DS specific term, or like beta gets used as like usually a more like submissive partner, and like dominant's more, you know, alpha's more dominant than that. Gender wise, I don't really think there is. I think like pet play, especially like puppy play, was very male dominant. Kitten play tends to be very female dominant, and then pony play is like a pretty good mix in the middle. But I think these days you'll see a pretty healthy percentage of everyone kind of doing everything. Like a kitten player, like actually most of the kitten players I know in real life are men or non-binary folk, and most of the puppy players I've known in real life have been like other women and also non-binary people. And I don't know, it's very interesting. I don't think that there are like any gender specific or DS specific roles. I think especially within like the puppy play community, because there's more of a hierarchy like between puppy players than there is with like pony players or kitten players, which are the two other big categories of pet play. You will see more like alpha pet types or like dominant pet types that with other, like they might have a human owner, but with other pets, they are the dominant person. But that is like, you know, I wouldn't say it's a majority of people, but I also wouldn't say it's a minority either. Like it's a sizable amount, like more than maybe you would think. I would say at most of the moshes I've been to, it's like there's usually like, if there's 30 people at the mosh, like 2 or 3 of them are maybe like that dominant pet role. They're not necessarily exclusively the dominant pet role, but like that's what they are with other pets. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly. Can you elaborate on packs? I don't really have a good personal example of like a pack dynamic. There's a YouTube channel that they don't really upload that much anymore, but they're called G-Pup Alpha, and they were featured on a lot of like earlier documentaries about puppy play and pet play, like Truly and places like that, you know, that era of documentary, maybe let's say, on making on YouTube. And they talked a lot about like their pack dynamic because they had like a human owner and then they had other puppies that were like in their pack with them. I think it's just like a really like a certain flavor of having a more traditional, I don't know, like harem like DS dynamic where it's like one dominant person and then like a bunch of submissives, and like amongst those submissives there might be like a head submissive or an alpha submissive, which was like the original use, I think, of the term alpha, like in most BDSM contexts, where like the alpha submissive wasn't necessarily a pet player or like primal or anything like that. It was like they are just the head submissive out of all the submissives. They are still submissive to the dominant, but amongst all of the submissives, they're allowed to like, you know, keep track of infractions, maybe do punishments, you know, outline rules and expectations, you know, kind of keep the other submissives on track, you know? But I can't necessarily say if that's like the definitive like first time that we really saw alpha being used in the scene, but like that's like the closest thing, right? It's like a specific flavor of that typically, where it's like human owner and then their pets, and then amongst their pets there might be another hierarchy of like the head pet, the alpha of the group or whatever. But I'm not like, it's a dynamic, but like I haven't experienced it enough to really definitively say like what about that is more common or not. I have an AFAB femme friend who identifies as a raccoon. She definitely gives off the energy. Yeah, for sure. Like one of the first events I ever went to in the BDSM community, God, it was a long time ago now, 7 years ago maybe. I have to see what date I posted that photo on FetLife. But there was a pet play party that I went to, and it was like full of all sorts of different people, right? Like I think at the time, especially, I think this has sort of changed in the last couple of years, but at the time, especially online, the expectation was, it was, you know, the female kittens and occasionally puppies, but it was very separated out in terms of like who was playing what and how that was done. And like it was pretty unusual to have, you know, non-kitten, puppy, pony like type pets, and kitten was certainly the most visible. And at that first event, I saw like foxes, raccoons, a dragon, a bear, a wolf, puppies, littles. Like they were all over the spectrum, right? Like it was actually more common for somebody to be something other than a puppy, a pony, or whatever than it was, you know. So anyways, like definitely you will see lots of different people do different things, and it's nice that it's so diverse. Honestly, I really do think that that's a wonderful thing, that we have that diversity and that people can really take their time to find a flavor that works for them. Also, my dog is completely far away from where the camera currently is, so I think I'm gonna turn off the camera for now. And then if she comes back later, we'll have that back. But yeah. All right, I'm going to take a second here. I'm going to let people know that we're streaming on Twitter, and then we'll get back to more questions. Because I'm still kind of like noodling on that earlier question about like, okay, like changing a relationship from being like one direction, like dominant and submissive, to now being maybe more open. But yeah. I actually have a really cute picture I took of Banditti when I was setting up the camera. I don't know where I saved it. Where did I save? Oh, no, that's not it. Somewhere in here. I just organized all my files, too. That's how you know you're an adult, is when you take time out of your day to organize your freaking computer files. Did I save it in like a weird spot? Maybe I saved it in one of my like project folders for a video. I genuinely am not sure where this ended up. I would be sad if I can't find it. Where did it go? I want everyone to be able to see this cute photo of my dog. I have a bunch of other photos, just not like that particular one. Where did I... Maybe I hope it's not, like, lost to time. Maybe I put it in my streaming folder? I don't know why I would have done that. Maybe I did. No, it's not. It's not in here. Oh no, lost Banditti photo. Ah, well. I'll probably find it later and be like pleasantly surprised. It's also been really warm here lately. I've been out and enjoying the sun and going on walks, and that's all been really nice and enjoyable. I'm just checking my other like computer folders. I'm also told that on Twitter, if you put a link in the first tweet, it like suppresses the tweet for some reason. And so that's why I'm trying to find this photo to put in here. So then hopefully it won't suppress my tweet. So then people will see it. Because if nobody sees it, then what's the point, you know? I hope I didn't delete it by accident. Alright, well, I'm going to stop looking for it. I'm just going to have to risk it. Alright, there we go. Now everyone knows that I'm streaming. Okay, thank you, Andrew. I mentioned to my partner today that I like switching and topping her, but if her primary partner were around seeing us play, I'd feel too uncomfortable topping around him. Oh, yeah. She understands, but thinks it's a little odd. I mean, I don't like it when people, like, invalidate people's worries or, like, self-conscious feelings about things like that, because I think that is normal. Like, I don't think that that's odd. I think it, especially when you're newer to doing something and with a new partner, like, you're co-topping and even having another person's like dom or partner like watch you do a scene with somebody, like you're thinking, oh my gosh, like not only do I have to worry about the person I'm doing a scene with right now in the moment, I'm worried about like their partner and impressing them and making sure that I seem like a safe person, and if I'm doing things differently than they do, are they judging me? Like, I think that's very normal to worry about. And I think, you know, it's not going to be made any better by you know, basically telling somebody it's odd to worry about. I think if you're just a bottom, like you're very used to people watching you do a scene. They might have a little bit more of like an exhibitionist or like a voyeuristic component to it where you like people watching you, and you know, it doesn't cross your mind, I think, in the same ways like when you're topping, because when you're bottoming, you worry about like, I hope I look cool, I hope I look good in this outfit, I hope I seem like I can, you know, I look impressive or whatever. Like, you have other thoughts that go through your head, but like you don't worry about it in the same way you do when you're topping somebody typically. So this kind of sucks that they told you that it was odd, but I don't think that it's odd. I think that I think it's maybe even more common than not to worry about the impression you're leaving with somebody else's other partner when you're doing a scene with them. Like, I think that's totally reasonable. Now, I think there's definitely ways that you can work through that if you don't want to feel uncomfortable or nervous about like topping them when somebody else is watching. You can work through it, but unusual or odd, no, I don't think so. I just like have this hair that keeps getting in my face. I don't know. Okay, so getting back to the question about, you know, my partner wants me to maybe start switching with them. We've had a DS relationship or a top bottom relationship, and now they want me to start like doming or topping them. I think kind of where I left off on answering that was, okay, you know, you got to talk to your partner about what they would be getting out of the scenario and kind of asking yourself where those overlaps are. I think obviously the next question is, okay, you want to start doing that for yourself. You want to actually start doing a scene with people. And I think that when you are going through that process and you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do for like a scene with this person? How do I actually start topping them, or how do I start like doming them or something? I think if you're more motivated by like, or your partner wants to have like more rules and structure, you'd probably start there. You'd probably start with like just implementing like one rule, seeing how that feels. If your partner is more motivated by like service, they want to do maybe like worshipy stuff perhaps, then you start with that. You do maybe like a foot worship scene when you're watching a movie together, or you'd have them get you a drink while you're working on the computer, or you'd have them prepare dinner for you. Something that maybe is almost sort of vanilla-ish, but you can add a DS flavor to it, right? Because like, you know, when you have roommates or you have a vanilla partner, like people ask each other like, hey, can you get me a glass of water? Do you want to make dinner tonight? Like people ask for those kinds of like favors is the way they're typically thought about in non-kink relationships all the time. So I think that's sort of like a safe place to start where like it's, I think, easier to mentally be comfortable with. I think especially if you were in a DS relationship with them or you did like certain scenes with them as they're submissive, I think I'd also probably recommend not doing the same kind of scene with them immediately that maybe you did when you were their submissive, because I think there's a lot more mental association to work through. Like if you were primarily like a really heavy masochist and you did a lot of really heavy impact play scenes, starting out experimenting with DS or some other kind of like relationship like that where you're the one topping or doming them, but also doing the same thing, it does have the advantage of familiarity where it's going to be the thing that you're most used to doing, and so maybe that feels comfortable. But again, there's that mental association that you have with like that kind of scene space and the way that you see them in those scenes, and that might not always be the most helpful. I think also what I would do instead is like, okay, maybe rules, maybe like some kind of service activity. If you want to do a more kind of common like pain related scene, I would have it be something that you typically didn't do with them as a submissive or as a bottom, right? Like if you never did wax play, if you never used paddles, like then that would be something I would think to go towards. But there's so many possibilities with like what a partner could want from you, you know, dominating them, right? It could be a role play thing, it could be a sissy thing, it could be cuckolding, it could be masochism, it could be humiliation play, it could be electro play, it could be I want you to put sounding rods up my penis, it could be pegging. Like there's so many possibilities out there that it's like you're gonna have to do some work to kind of narrow down what that is. But you know, and I think relying on them to kind of be able to guide you through that in terms of what it is they're looking for and what they want to have done, and just realizing that like because I'm assuming that you actually want to do this and this seems like it would be cool. I would start just really slowly, like not like necessarily doing full-on scenes immediately, but testing the waters, trying things out, and working your way up in terms of confidence level to be able to do a full-on scene. This is a mistake, and I talked about this in the most recent video that I made. I think people make the mistake when they're a newer dom or top of like thinking they gotta go all out super fast. That when you're doing a scene, you just gotta, you gotta do the role play and the costuming. It's gotta be 2 hours long. You got a whole like just elaborate, like an elaborate haunted house worth of material you gotta put together. And I don't really think that works, because well, one, you haven't really necessarily seen before at all. And so you don't really know what's going to work and what would actually flow together well. And then you don't know what your partner likes and how they're going to respond to certain things. So I think just like starting out bare bones, super simple, and then building up off of that is usually the best way to go. But that's been my experience, at least. Yeah, I turned off the thing for the Nightbot that was like, I think too sensitive to like emojis and stuff. So hopefully that shouldn't be a problem anymore. Anyways, I hope that answered your question. I'll keep an eye out for maybe any follow-ups, anything else that maybe you'd want to know about, but we'll leave it there for now. Okay. I'm just super sleepy and lurking down. I mean, yeah, no worries. We love the lurkers. Good evening, y'all. Although it certainly feels like afternoon due to the sun. Yeah, it's gonna be probably dark in like half an hour, so enjoy it while it lasts for sure. All right, looking for questions. I have been wondering about daylight savings time. What do you actually save? I don't think anything. There's like I'm sure whole Wikipedia articles about like why we have daylight savings time, and I couldn't remember what the actual story is off the top of my head. I think like one of the commonly said legends about it is like farming or something, but I don't even think that's what it is. Anyways, who knows? We just like changing the clocks around. just to be weird, just to be weird. I wonder if Evie Lupine will pull out her ears. I don't have cat ears, Dale. I don't have cat ears. I have puppy ears. I have little Pomeranian ears, okay? But no, actually, they're in a box, but I think the box is currently like downstairs in the closet for being in storage from when the carpet got replaced. So I actually don't have them handy anyways. Yeah, no worries. Okay, immediately afterwards, they were like their dog ears. Yes, they're not cat ears. Don't worry about it. I know everyone makes that assumption. Yes. I'm trying not to get in a comment discussion about St. Patrick's Day. Send good vibes and support if you can. Just ignore, just don't look at comment sections, really. Like, why? Like, what argument could you possibly have about St. Patrick's Day? Like, is it like I mean, it doesn't matter, but like, the religious aspect of it, the public drinking, like American diaspora of like Irish people versus actual Irish people and how they celebrate St. Patrick. What possible thing could need hashing out in a comment section, you know? Like we haven't already talked about 50 different ways already, you know? The doggo cam is fantastic. Oh, she's back in a cameraable position. She's just moving around a lot today. She just is like, I'm gonna move around. I'm gonna make your job as difficult as possible. There we go. Look at her little fluffy tail. She's just struggling to find a comfortable spot to lay down apparently today. All right. Okay. Whoop. Alrighty. Trying to find. I lost the chat when I went to go fix the dog camera. We're not going to have Evie getting drunk on stream tonight. No, I totally didn't think that it was St. Patrick's Day. I knew it was like close. I thought it was actually like the 14th or something. I think I got it mixed up with Valentine's Day. I was like, oh yeah, the 12th, the 14th, somewhere in there. Totally. I think I have wine maybe downstairs, but not enough to get drunk off of. And frankly, I need to be productive after the live stream. So I can't get drunk and then like hang out on the couch for 2 hours and then fall asleep. So no drinking currently. All right. There's no celebration of a holiday quite like a line curling around the block of a Taco Bell on Cinco de Mayo. Why though? Like, is it just because, oh, we gotta get Mexican food because it's Cinco de Mayo, or does like Taco Bell like do a special for Cinco de Mayo? Like, I hadn't even thought about that. I don't think I've even. Have I ever done anything for Cinco de Mayo? I don't even think when I was in college I did anything for Cinco de Mayo. Like, it's just not. I just don't. Vibing at home, having a salad, you know? Not really top of my priority list. Oh, it's actually a play off of Bellatrix. Oh, not Dominatrix, but Bellatrix. Oh, of course. From Harry Potter, but I am a Switch Engine fangirl because you like my name. Oh, well, it is a good name. And yeah, it's another possibility. I mean, I do wonder if J.K. Rowling got Bellatrix from Dominatrix. I wouldn't be surprised if that was like partly the inspiration, because the way that like J.K. Rowling names people and things in the books is just like whatever the most obvious connection is, that is where her brain went. Like, did not think about things like, is there a single like side character name that had anything more than like 50 seconds worth of thought put into it? Probably not. Some people, Taco Bell is their only access to Mexican food. The quotes are intentional. Yeah, it's, you know, it's about as Mexican as, I don't know, Panda Express is like Chinese food. It bears a slight resemblance if you sort of look at it sideways, but not more than that. All right. How do you know when someone is saying the truth when it comes to experience? So that is a really good question. I think that's an important one too. So how do you know somebody's telling the truth? I think it depends what in particular they are talking about with their experience, right? Are they just vaguely saying, oh, I have 10 years of experience? Are they referencing a certain person or a certain class? I think you're not necessarily going to know if they're telling the truth just like instinctually if the only thing they say is like, oh, I have 10 years of experience. Like, if they're, I don't know, 25 and saying they have 10 years of experience, you can go, wait, I'm going to do the math on that real quick. Carry the 5. All right, that you can't have 10 years of experience because fooling around with the dog collar when you were 15 doesn't count as BDSM experience. So, at least not to my mind. So, yeah, if it's that and you're like, the age doesn't match up with the number there, I think you're probably going to have to ask some follow-up questions to kind of figure out, you know, are they telling the truth? And you can do this in a way where it won't provoke defensiveness. It's just like genuine curiosity. And I do this all the time about like, oh, really? Like, when did you get into BDSM? Like, how did that happen? Like, start asking about like how they got into BDSM, how they learned things, their previous experience, and like somebody who is kind of just, well, I find that people don't tend to fully like make up being into BDSM when they really weren't. I find what happens is they tend to maybe stretch the definition of what counts as participating in BDSM. Like, they will say, oh, I've been into BDSM for 10 years, but what they really mean is for like 5 years, they were really into like BDSM porn and they read like the Sunstone comics or whatever. And so they're not really doing BDSM per se, but they're sort of mentally involved with it, and they're like, that's close enough. And I find people tend to do that more than just like pretending that they went to some like convention that doesn't exist, or they'll make up some bullshit about like, oh, I got my training done here. Like, if anyone starts going on, unless they're a femdom and it's like a professional thing, like if they start going on about, yeah, I was in this house and I got trained in domination, like, if they start saying that, start asking real particular questions about when it was, where it was, who it was with, what the place was called, because there's, like, unless you are a professional dominatrix being trained by other pro doms, you're probably not getting trained at, like, a BDSM dojo or whatever. Like, that would be a red flag. So just kind of ask more particular questions about like when they got started, how long they've been doing certain things, where they learned particular skills from. And so it's like a genuine curiosity of like, you'd want to know that information. You're not like trying to hunt down like if they're lying or anything. Because again, I think the main thing that people tend to do is they tend to exaggerate and stretch the truth more than outright making up things. And if somebody does genuinely have several years of experience, they're not going to be put off by, you know, being asked to have references from previous partners or more particular information about like, oh, like you said, you took a class on blood play. Like, where was that? How long ago was it? Like, they're not going to be put off by that. That's going to be pretty standard for them in terms of like if they have, you know, well, I don't want to say that's universally a red flag if they're not used to that, because I am thinking more about people that like they do pick up play a lot, like they go to dungeons a lot, so they're used to being asked questions about, you know, the particulars of their experience level. But if their previous experience was like, oh, I had like a DS relationship in my marriage and now like my marriage broke up or something, and like they did everything like privately at home, they might not be used to those certain questions, and they might not have the typical background of like a hobbyist BDSMer where it's like a lifestyle thing that they've been doing like publicly for a couple of years. So even that, like, there's not really a universal thing I can make a rule about there. But I think that's probably what I would do, is just kind of like, can they answer more detailed questions about like where their experience was from, and like when you ask about that, do they get defensive? Do they get dismissive? Like, oh, that doesn't matter, you should just like take my word for it, or like, well, I say I'm a dom, so that should be good enough for you. Like, why are you being so picky? Like, you are allowed to, if somebody is going to potentially hurt your body, maim you, psychologically torture you, like, you know, mess around with your body and mind, like, you are allowed to answer and ask some detailed questions before you consent to that happening. So I would go for that. That is what I would do. But, you know, that's me. I have not personally had any experience with people you know, outright lying to me about experience. I wouldn't be too concerned about that happening, but I might if it was like an online person. I think if you're talking to anyone online, you got to have a higher level of skepticism, but yeah. I was told I've been doing this since I was 18, and I was like, that's not saying much unless you told me your age. Yeah, it's like, okay, and you're 19, you're 35. Like, what does doing it since you were 18 mean? Because also it's like, I personally don't count for what I want to do in BDSM, at least. Because also, like, what counts as experience is, like, relative to what you want to do. Like, if what you're looking for is, like, a casual, occasional bedroom BDSM relationship where, like, you get tied up and then you have sex, or they put handcuffs on you and then you have sex, or they spank you and then you have sex. Like, if that's what you want, then that kind of experience is relevant for what you're looking for. But for me, like, I'm looking for that. So if somebody tells me, oh, I have 10 years of BDSM experience, and then what they've actually done is, oh yeah, when I would hook up with girls, I would spank them occasionally. Like, I'm like, but you've never been to a dungeon, never taken a class, never, okay. Like, the list of things that are actually important to me haven't happened, and so to me that doesn't really count as experience. So also, like, what counts is relative. So keep that in mind too when you're evaluating a person. Like, they could have experience, but it might not even be the experience you're looking for, right? Like, if you're looking for an experienced dom to do a caning scene with, but then they've never done caning before, then it's, you know, not a thing. Are you telling me people lie on the internet? Oh, all the time. Especially when it comes to, like, bragging about sex things. Like, y'all are the biggest, like, well, let's just say y'all, but people can be the biggest liars about that in terms of, like, oh yeah, I've had 30 partners and I've done this and I've had a threesome and I've done blah, blah, blah. But it turns out that, like, the threesome they had was, like, I don't even know how you, I don't even like, they had sex at a party and then a third girl watched, you know, like, that counted as a threesome somehow. It's that sort of a thing. All right, let's get back to some more questions. Let's get into the questions. This is your brain on polyamory? Yeah, a little bit. Oh yeah. Okay, to be clear, I'm not saying that you need to drive to be polyamorous. I'm saying that if you are so young, they won't even legally allow you to be behind the wheel of a vehicle. You probably aren't mentally equipped yet to be able to navigate multiple relationships simultaneously. That I realize now that the way that I said that maybe came across like you have to have a driver's license to be able to do poly. What I actually mean by that is like, if the government has decided you are not mentally equipped enough to be behind the wheel of a vehicle, you probably don't have enough skills yet to also be able to successfully navigate like dating 3 people at once. That's what I mean. Love the impromptu threesome example. Evie, exhibitionist must be on another level. Yeah, I know. It's like, wow, every time I go to the dungeon, I have an orgy. And by orgy, I mean 5 people watched me have a scene. Yeah. BDSM feels like some kind of game, it seems. Single player, self-play. Multiplayer, where it's either local, being like married couples, or online, being a player in a dungeon. That's actually a pretty good analogy. I like that. I think that's like a fair way of looking at it. Yeah, all right. Yes, we love the mods. The mods do good work keeping us safe, keeping the chat flowing. I guess there's multiple levels of mods now. There's like standard moderators and like some other thing. Like I could make people some other type of mod. I actually don't really know how that works. I'm not going to mess with it. But I guess there's tiers of mods now. And I haven't looked into what that means. But YouTube is constantly adding new and confusing features that nobody asked for. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe somebody asked about mod things. Watching Bandit in their natural environment of cozy home with EV ASMR. Yeah, it's visual ASMR. That's what it is. Oh, I've heard you're a rope bottom. I mean, Legend says, how much time do you take to test in between really tough rope bondage scenes to let your body recover and avoid or reduce nerve compression? Oh, that's a really good question. So it's been a while since I've had like a regular rope bondage partner, but I very rarely did ties where there was a big risk of nerve compression. Like I didn't do like TKs, which is where the rope, I'm not, the Bandit camera's covering it up, where like the rope goes over like here and like here, where like the nerves are typically like the highest risk for being compressed. I didn't really do a lot of ties like that to begin with. Maybe with wrist, I guess, would be maybe the closest thing where like nerve compression would have been a potential issue. I think part of the way that I mitigated it was just I didn't do ties like that because I'm like, my nerves on my arms are just like very close to the surface of my skin, and my arms just go numb and tingly like immediately, and so it's like it didn't feel good. It wasn't fun. Like I don't really like numb tingly feeling, and I didn't want to, like, you know, I'm a YouTuber. I don't have workers comp or PTO or whatever. Like I don't, you know, if I miss, you know, being able to edit or send emails or whatever for a week because I have wrist drop because of a nerve issue and I don't know how long it's going to last for, like I'm kind of screwed, you know? So I never really wanted to play around with that too much. But I think in general, I don't know if there's like a rule about this that other people would follow that's like, doctors recommend you wait this long between doing like heavy scenes. I would think about it more from the perspective of coming down from a scene in general and avoiding sub drop, because like and we've talked about this on stream before, I think a couple times, where, you know, typically, if you're doing a scene and you get the high of the scene, it's really awesome and amazing. And this goes for like impact play, rope, like whatever. Like if you're getting an endorphin rush from the scene, you're getting a mental high from it, whatever it is. You're doing the scene, you're getting up really high, you feel really good, and then you start to crash, right? And then you recover, you get back to your baseline, right? Like your high was here, your low was here, and your baseline's here, But you go through the crash of the sub drop, and then you can go back to baseline. But what a lot of people do is they'll kind of like avoid getting into sub drop. And they don't really even do this on purpose, but like the scenes feel so good, they keep doing more and more of them. Like they'll do this, and then as they start to come down, they do another scene, and then they go up, and then they go up, and then they go up, and like, you guys see what I'm going at here? Like you have used so much of your brain chemicals riding this continual high and never coming back down to baseline, that when you actually do come back down to baseline and you have to go through sub drop first. Like it's like the Archer scene where it's like the collective hangover would kill me, but it's like the sub drop, the collective sub drop would kill me, right? Like, cause instead of doing this, you're doing like this, like it's a way bigger drop when you eventually come down from doing so many scenes back to back repeatedly. And like you do eventually come back to baseline, but now instead of doing like this, it's like this, like it takes way longer to finally get back to your baseline. And so if I'm doing like lighter scenes or like labbing something, I'll do maybe like, if I'm at a convention or something, I'll do like 1 or 2 scenes a day probably. But like standard, just kind of messing around, regular dungeon night type stuff, maybe 1 or 2 a week, somewhere in there, but maybe not more than that. Like I would say maximum I do, like if I was doing a convention, would be like 6 scenes in a week. And then if I was doing something like regular on a weekend party night, I'd maybe one or 2 scenes a week. And I would maybe space out doing like heavy rope bondage to do it maybe like, again, probably about once a week, I'd say is like a fair amount, because that gives you time to like physically and emotionally recover. But then you could do like lighter scenes in between that. I think the main thing is to vary up the kinds of scenes that you're doing. Like if you're doing a paddling scene and you do paddles, hand spankings, like you do them on the butt every single time, and it's always over the knee. Like you risk in that scenario, like giving yourself what's called leather butt, which is like when your skin simultaneously becomes very toughened. And also, Twixie says, I've accidentally moved my face, instead of moving the thing. Looks like managing mods can turn chat on and off and manage the blocked words list, basically useful for teams, companies. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, I don't think we necessarily need that one. And thank you, Twixie. So what was I saying? Oh yes, leather butt. So leather butt is like this interesting combination of like the skin getting toughened and not bruising as easily, but also the skin can start to break more easily. Like you don't bruise, but your skin breaks, and like it's basically like damage to like your, I don't know if it's your what is it, your stratiacorneum or whatever. I don't remember what that word is. But basically it's like damage to like the surface of your skin that is particularly caused by like hand spankings and paddles because of the rigidity of the implement used. So like if you don't vary up your scene and you're always doing paddling on the butt over and over and over again, like that's more likely to happen. In the same way that like we don't have a lot of studies about this, but we do have some evidence anecdotally to suggest that nerve damage can be both acute in that it happens randomly because of one thing happening in one scene, but it can also be cumulative, where if you're doing a TK in the same spot, the same style, loaded in a similar way, over and over and over again, over time, you are elevating your risk that an injury will happen, not only just because of random chance, but because like minor nerve issues can possibly get aggravated, as this is my understanding of what I've seen people theorize about, because again, we don't have like scientific evidence to support like this being the mechanism for how this happens, because it turns out like nobody's funding nerve damage studies for rope bondage. Who would have guessed? But there's a theory that it could be caused by like repeated injury, like over and over and over again. In the same way that like repetitive motion injuries are common in a lot of things. It's like carpal tunnel, you know. I think like maybe tennis elbow and some other things are those repetitive motion injuries. Like it's basically its own category of like a repetitive injury that could potentially happen. So what I'd recommend doing, and this is also like more fun, I feel like, is to just vary like what types of suspensions you're doing, what types of bondage you're doing, where in the body you're doing it, what you're loading it, how you're loading it, instead of just doing like the fucking TK, single Futomomo, upright suspension, into an M suspension with double Futomomos, and then dropping into like either a single leg hang from the Futo or dropping into like an inversion from just a chest harness. Like there's like a very standard formula that a lot of people will do for the suspensions over and over and over again, to the point where now when I see a performance with that sequence in it, I just don't watch it because I'm like, I know what's going to happen, right? It's like, oh, we do the TK and then we do the Futomomo, and then we lift her up by one leg that's on the Futo, and then we add a second Futo, and then we do an M-shaped suspension, and then we do this. Like, it's just like, it's so common. That as long as you're not falling into a rut with like doing the same thing over and over and over again, I think that's going to be your like main line of defense for like avoiding like a repetitive injury potentially. Yeah. I hear minor nerve issues can get aggravated after about 18 years. So I have no idea about a timeline for that. Oh, no. OTK as in over the knee, not what was the other thing? That must be like a fighting game or like an esports thing. One time kill? I don't know, something like that. Rope bondage or gymnastic floor routine, you decide. Yeah, I know. It's like everyone's doing the fucking God, there's so many things in gymnastics that are super repetitive as well. Like it's like back handspring, like a round off or whatever, like whatever that sequence is that's like really common in on beam routines. Everyone's doing jump sequences now on the beam. Everyone's doing like a sheep jump, ring leap, ring jump, like some shit like that over and over again. Like the fucking, anyways, I like watching gymnastics. Okay, don't call me out like that. But there's a lot of like standard stuff you'll see a lot in a competitive like elite gymnastics. That's just like everyone's just copying each other. Anyways, one turn kill is in fighting games or turn-based games like Pokemon. Or one true king, I guess. Or technical knockout. Well, but people don't say TKO, they say TK. But I guess that's a whole different overlap. There's many an overlapping acronym for the BDSM community. Oh, okay. So we're back at the question for the newbie dom moves for the so if you guys don't know what the door frame tweets are, because that was, first of all, go to my Twitter. It's at Evie Lupine. The door frame tweets. So the door frame tweets are, and I am not on TikTok, so I maybe am not fully understanding the context here, but from what I saw on Twitter, I guess there's a trend on like book talk or like romance novel TikTok or whatever it's called, where the challenge was, and I guess I don't have a door frame, but I do have a window frame, where the thing was you would go to your partner, your boyfriend, and you'd be like, hey, can you do this thing they do in like romance novels where like you put the arm up and then you lean down and then like you kiss me or whatever. And it was like people filming themselves trying it out and like asking their partner to do that to them and like seeing how they would react to it. Like I'm gonna try and like, I don't even know how I do this, but it would be like, you know, it'd be like, hey baby, want to come? Like it would be like that kind of a thing, you know. You'd lean down and there was a lot of guys like also like then they'd put like their hand around their partner's throat and I'd be like, all right, that wasn't called for. Like the door frame thing was fine, because there was people like experimenting. It was like cute to see people like trying out and like being vulnerable and asking their partner to do something. I know, wild, right, Bandit? We're asking people to do things. Who would have guessed? And like the giggling and the giddiness, you could see that they were like, they liked it. They liked that their partner did it. And it was cute to see the vulnerability and the trying out new things and that working out for people. But also then people would tack on like other shit where it's like, all right, let's not get into sudden full frontal choking. Let's maybe Okay, TikTok loves watching people put hands on throats. That's like, if you put that in a TikTok, you're gonna get like 10 times as many views if you don't. Like, it's nuts how common it is on there, but that's a whole other conversation. But I talked about that on Twitter a little bit because I think that kind of like posture stuff is a really good way of like getting into your Dom headspace. Maybe even going back to that question somebody asked earlier about like, my partner wants me to Dom them, like, what do I do? I think little moves like that can be a good way of like tapping into your Dom persona and Dom feelings. Like, you could get a similar thing out of like having your partner like sit on the floor when you're at the dining table and like eating dinner, or you're sitting on the couch and then like they're sitting like between your legs on like the floor next to you, or you know, you're sleeping on the bed and then like they're sleeping on the ground. Like, height differential and putting yourself, and almost this sort of feels like it could be something a pickup artist would say, like in terms of, what do they call that, like social engineering. Like, it is a little bit of that, but people do, like, there is something that people will feel a certain type of way about if they are you know, put underneath somebody, or if you have to like look, oh god, I completely messed up my hair. There is something I think to be said about like how you can have your submissive mindset kind of like triggered by somebody, you know, being visually taller than you. They don't have to literally be taller. And this is also this is all right. I messed up my hair, but we're gonna have to stick with this choice that I've made for now, I guess. All right. Whatever. All right. This is gonna bother me. I gotta fix this. All right. I'm just gonna have to look at the camera for this one, I think. I don't normally look in front of the mirror to do this, but I don't want my hair to look. Okay, that's better. There we go. That's better. Oh my god, I completely lost my train of thought. Dom moves that feel dominant and social engineering. Okay, so I think that can be a good way to like both help your partner feel more submissive and also you to feel more dominant. I think also, especially if you're a femme person and you're really used to being asked to like be polite, don't be a bitch, you know, you ask for things instead of telling people to do things for you, because it would be rude to impose on somebody by just telling them to do something. Like, I think that can also be a really good beginner Dom move. If you have a relationship, you have to be a little careful about this because you don't want to seem like you're not giving your submissive the option to like say no or like revoke their consent. But like, if you're within a scene space and you've said like, hey, want to do this, then like go for it. But I think one thing you can also do to like feel more dominant is to like tell rather than ask, or ask in a very particular way. Like, there's a difference between like, oh, if it's like not too much of a bother, like, could you maybe please, if you have time, like go get me a glass of water, if you just like happen to go downstairs. There's like asking that way, and there's asking like, will you get me a glass of water, pet? That is technically still asking, but it's not even saying like, can you, or like, if you have time, like you're saying like, will you go do this for me? And there is a question in that, but I think most people will hear that, and unless they're a brat, maybe, in which case, different scenario than this. Most people will hear that, and they won't like feel it super up for debate. Or you could even go like, go fetch me a glass of water. Like, not even have a question in there, if you and your partner want that. And that can be a really good way of like tapping into more of that dominant space that I think, especially again, if you're, you know, socialized in a particular fashion, you might not be used to doing, and that can feel very powerful just all on its own. Like, being able to act in that way and not be like, you know, smacked down socially for doing it. So that can also be a good thing to do as well. I think also, I think people overlook, like, and maybe this is just where I live, but I feel like in the Pacific Northwest, most people by default are very casual with how they dress. Not necessarily in femdom spaces, but in like male dom spaces, you're fucking lucky if a man is not wearing basketball shorts. Like most people, and that could be a relief, right? Because I think sometimes people think, oh my God, I have to like go buy a new suit and do this to be able to go to a party. And you definitely don't. Unless a party has a particular dress code otherwise, most people will they'll be wearing black, but they're probably going to be fairly casual, right? They're going to be, you know, maybe jeans and a black t-shirt, you know, basketball shorts and a black t-shirt, like a kink related graphic tee. Like for some people, you know, they could be a dom in a bathrobe and it wouldn't really matter to them, their personal style. But I think for a lot of people, your personal fashion and expression can really change your mindset. And I think like femdoms tend to recognize this a little bit more, that they're like, yeah, I feel like my femdom self, you know, and once I put on my corset, but like before that, you know, I'm not really fully ready to be in dom mode. And so you got to find that what works for you. Like that could be corsets, it could be fishnets, it could be latex, it could be leather, it could be big tall boots, it could be platform heels, it could be 1950s stuff, it could be a suit, it could be, you know, a women's pantsuit, it could be, you know, professional business office clothing, it could be whatever you want. But like I think, I don't even know what it calls like a new dom move, but when you're a newer dominant, like definitely think about clothing that would make you feel powerful and in control. And it's going to be different for everyone. And sometimes it won't matter. Sometimes you'd be like, okay, well, I don't really care if I'm wearing this, that, or the other. You know, that's irrelevant for me. But I think for a lot of people, you'd be surprised how much your mindset can change just based off of what you're wearing, for sure. I also think, like, for newer doms and, like, newer dom moves, like, in terms of, like, the physicality of it, I also think about, like, almost maybe even the ways you'd, like, touch or approach your partner, like a sort of a step two after, like, okay, maybe you are both standing up, so maybe you can't really, like, manipulate, like, a height difference or something, like, you know, in terms of, like, sitting or leaning over somebody, maybe you can't create a height differential with that, like an eye gaze difference. You can, however, use your hands and, like, implements to kind of generate a similar feeling, right? Like, you can approach somebody and then, like, if you're holding a crop or something, which I think is the best use for a crop, is not actually hitting people. It's commanding a room and directing somebody's gaze and attention in different ways. You know, like, you can poke a crop at their chest and, like, graze it up along their neck, right? And direct their eyes to look a certain way, right? Or maybe it's leaning in and, like, holding their chin. I actually recommend this over grabbing somebody's neck, because a lot of people, and you should always talk about any of this before you do it, for the record. That's my advice, at least. Like, throat grabbing can feel very dominant. It's a cheap shot, though. It is the dominant equivalent of kicking somebody in the nuts. And I don't mean like in a CBT way. I mean in a, like, yeah, like it's like cheating, kind of. Like, a lot of people will feel very vulnerable when you do this, but it doesn't actually, like, that only works so many times before it loses its luster when it's not backed up by anything. So I wouldn't use it as, like, the go-to always cheat sheet of, like, anytime I do this, I will be dominant. Like, just don't wear it out, you know? I feel like throat touching should be earned, you know? But so instead is, like, an alternative for that I think actually can be more powerful in how it allows you to manipulate a person, like, physically, not, like, psychologically necessarily, is throat touching can be very sensitive. It can be uncomfortable for people. I think actually grabbing somebody on the chin like this, and, like, maybe you've got some nice, maybe you got your nails done, maybe you got, you know, you got little acrylics or whatever, you got sharp nails, like, just holding somebody on the chin, you know, and it's hard to do this on myself, like, I like kind of fine with the crook of their jaws, you know, or, like, holding it on their chin like this, and you can suddenly manipulate their head, right, to do it. I'm not doing anything. I'm fully not cooperating with myself at all right now. And I can manipulate my head in a lot of different ways. So you can like grab onto somebody's chin and manipulate them to like look down. Or even it could be if you can't create a height differential, like let's say your partner's 6'5" and you're 5'2", like even when they're sitting down, they're fucking eye level with you, like you can tell them to change their gaze, right? You can go, all right, look at the floor. Don't make eye contact with me. Like just be very direct and create that feeling of submission, not even necessarily with positions, but with like their gaze. Like you're like, all right, look down, slave. No eye contact. Did I tell you could look at me? Like just be really, really direct and create the feeling of you being in control using their gaze versus like a thing like that. I think that can actually be really good, and a lot of people really enjoy that. From both sides of the equation, like having their eye contact controlled. In terms of like physicality, you know, again, it could be running, you know, maybe fingernails, like maybe not even across their neck. I mean, if you want to touch somebody's neck, I would actually start with the back of the head first. And I saw this post on Fat Life recently, and I was like, oh, this has a name, and it's called the neck thing, I want to say, or something like that. It's either the neck thing or the spine thing, something like that. And what you do is instead of, you know, grabbing somebody's neck or whatever, if you touch from the base of somebody's spine up to the top of their neck, just like really lightly and slowly grazing there, it creates this like, I think it's like 20% of people don't feel anything, 40% feel it lightly, and like 40% feel it very strongly. If you rub your fingers up against the back of somebody's neck from the base down here up to the top, like you'll get a really, really nice tingle, and that can feel like, ooh, like delicious submissive shivers, you know, like I can even feel it doing it to myself. I don't know how strong of a feeling I get from it, but it feels like fairly strong, and that can be a really, really good tool as well. It's just like either holding the back of their neck or grazing up it, because that feels less vulnerable than going for the front. It's also like less dangerous as well. If you want to touch the neck, I would start with the back. You can also like, you know, do your hair pulling, you know, get your, and there's a video I'm making soon that you guys will see soon where I talk about this and I do this. But you can also, you know, rub your hand up against the back of their neck, right, and grab into their hair. That can feel really good. So there's lots of ways to like physically manipulate somebody, either like with, you know, your body doing something to them or with their eye gaze, and those can be some really good dominant moves. Anyways, I just felt watching. Yeah, it's very similar to an ASMR response. So if you're somebody that you know you are like sensitive to ASMR and you have a good ASMR reaction, I think this is connected to that. But also at the same time, like Twixie says, like, no, not a million times, no, back of my neck is the hardest love ever. Like, also, yeah, it's valid, right? Like, again, like, talk to anybody before you do anything. Like, don't spring this on people. But from a safety perspective, like, just in terms of, like, if something goes wrong, holding the front of the neck is risking the back of the neck, but don't surprise people by, like, touching their head or their face or their neck or anything. Like, that's, it's so easy to step on, like, an unknown psychological trigger doing that. It's just you don't want to go there unexpectedly. I love how weird our chat is. See what you did, Evie. Now we're all touching our necks. But you all, everyone does that, right? You want to know, do I have the neck thing? Do I have the neck thing? Like, now you know. Do you have the neck thing?
Ann Dickman donated $5.
I want to make
booping one's nose a dom thing.
Oh, that is totally a dom thing, for sure. Going, beep, like, you can't catch me, beep, and then running away. Could totally be a thing, absolutely. If you're into clown roleplay. I can make myself shiver a ton just on my own, yet I don't even feel like ASMR tingles. Yeah, who knows? I'm not sure, like, if they're even necessarily connected. Bandita. So sweet. I do wonder how many people have done scenes where they've cracked a raw egg on somebody's head. That sounds like it would be fun. Like in a wet and messy scene or something. All right, let's get back to some questions. I've discovered a new genre on TikTok where people pretend to be alpha male podcasters. It's becoming my new favorite genre. Oh, yes. I've seen those before. Like from YouTubers and stuff, they've done bits where they're like, all right, ladies, or all right, guys, we're here for the Man Hour podcast. Today, we're going to talk about how women are ridiculous. I mean, why do they have so many purses? I just don't get it. Like, why don't you just have one purse? I know, it's so stupid, dude. And it's always just like the one guy who talks a lot and the one guy who says nothing and just agrees constantly. And it's like, but is it wrong, though? Almost never. Okay. I've gotten pretty serious with a brat, but my life's been getting busier and can't give them the attention they need. I've been thinking about getting another person involved. Thoughts? So first of all, that's really sweet and great that you're thinking about making sure your brat's needs get met when your life changes. And I think that it can be really vulnerable to admit that. You're like, well, I want my partner to like feel good and have their needs met, but I can't necessarily be that person. So how do I do that? And I think if I was in your position, and it's a little bit different because like I have experience with poly, and so maybe my thought process around this would be different. I would try to think about what can I do currently to make sure I'm getting my partner's needs met, and how can I change that to better fit into my life? Like maybe we see each other less, but then like we text more during the day when I have time. Or maybe I set up things for them to do that they can kind of like self-manage, where they feel my presence in their life without me having to be directly involved. And this works better for like service submissives and people like, but also honestly with brats. Like, how would you do this scenario with the brat? Because like what I'm thinking of is like, if you give your partner tasks to do when you're not around and you can't necessarily watch them easily, like, you know, you need to read a chapter of this book and unload the dishwasher before I get home. Okay, well, they can self-manage that and like report to you and be more involved, even though you can't be there to like watch them do it. And that could be one way of doing it. But then like with a brat, like they need that feedback and attention, so it can't just be things that are self-directed. Brats are definitely one of the more difficult categories to deal with when you don't have time, because the brat's fundamental need is around attention. So how do you give somebody attention when you can't necessarily give them time? I guess you almost think about like sending out like automated emails or having like canned responses doesn't sound right to me because it's not really the idea that I'm trying to get across, but like if you can have a way to like stay in contact with your partner like throughout the day, whether that be like, okay, you have like a set list of like messages you can send people about like, hey, I'm thinking about you, or like, you know, I need you to do this for me. Like you can have things you set up in advance to send people, so that way you don't have to like spend time like coming up with a text message. You can just like slightly modify what you already have pre-written and just like put it in there, so you do have kind of like ongoing communication. But honestly, I don't think that getting another person involved is entirely a bad idea. Like whether that be like a co-topping thing or like giving them permission to like go to parties and play with other people. Like I think that's all fair. I wouldn't necessarily have the first solution be like, I'm gonna have like a third person come in and like be my co-dominant or something. Cause that's like a big time commitment, and it would probably take a long time to find the right person for that. So I would probably go more towards like, hey, like I want you to like go to play parties and play with people, and like, you know, we can be together when I have time for that, but I don't want you to feel like, you know, you're not getting your needs met as a masochist or whatever. So like, please like go out and play with people, go to parties, socialize, do that. I'm not, you know, and I think a lot of brats have abandonment, like, trauma. And you have to approach that conversation in a way where you're making it really abundantly clear that you are not trying to replace them, offload them onto somebody else, or you're saying they're too much or too needy. Like, it's very much about you and that you don't have time and their needs are perfectly valid and fine and normal. It's just you are lacking in that area. But it's tricky. It is very tricky to make sure that, you know, everyone's needs are still going to get met. But I think that, like, if they can go to play parties and maybe get kind of their immediate play needs met, and then also try to find ways that you can both still be in touch together, like when you're still busy, that like feel connective for those moments when you do have time together, that would be really good. Like, I don't know how busy you are, like what busy means. Like, does that mean, like, can you send text messages? Like, can you still like role play with them even if you can't necessarily do full-on scenes? Because I think almost doing kind of like teasy, sassy, like, oh no, you sent me a picture of your like messy bedroom and then like when I'm gonna come over I'm gonna punish you for that. Like, do you have time for that kind of a thing? Because if you do, that can also be a very good thing, right? You know, having that kind of more, you know, role play sort of a setup. But if you don't have time for that, like, that can be more difficult. But yeah, that's where I'd start with. But I'd love to know if anyone has this is a good one. Have an idea. Get your brat a furbo. Oh my god, that's great. Yeah. Get your brat a furbo. And then just, you, like, oh, that's such a good idea. So if you don't know what a furbo is, let me explain. A furbo is a dog camera that has a built-in treat launcher. And it's meant for monitoring your dogs at home. Like, when you're out of the house, you can turn one on and then it'll like record them barking and doing things, and you can like watch them on the camera. So yeah, you can set up a furbo for your brats. You can watch them at home, and then when they do good, you can fill the furbo with, like, I don't even know like what size candy would be good to put in that. I get like I don't know, like Nerds candy maybe, or like, God, how would they be small enough to fit through the launcher? Like cheese puffs? I don't know. Like maybe cheese puffs, like tiny little cheese curls, like mini cheese puffs. There's a cereal maybe. That would be a good one. You can put it in the launcher and then you can launch the cereal at your brat. They do a good job. Oh, it'd also be good for pet players, obviously, goes without saying. But yeah, that's a really good idea. I love that one. Also, out of nowhere, we suddenly have half an hour left. So if you want to ask your question, do it now. Do a super chat or forever hold your peace. And by forever, I mean until next Friday. Gumdrops. Oh, jelly beans. Jelly beans would be a good one. Yes. But be careful, because, like, you don't want the person to be standing too close when you launch it, because, like, if it's right there, it's kind of like being smacked with a BB pellet. It's not, you know, you don't want to injure anybody's eyes or genitals. Well, maybe you do, actually. Now I'm picturing a scene where you fill the furbo with, like, hard candies, and then you have somebody line up their junk with the furbo so you can long-distance CBT them. You guys really shouldn't, like, why do you trust me? I have these terrible ideas. I'm like, you know what's fun? Long-distance CBT by filling a fucking furbo with hard candies. Ugh. Technology has done wonders for long-distance kink, I'll say that. Why are brats bratty? Is it the attention, the reassurance that someone cares about them? I think that the two are related. I think that at the core, it is about getting attention. But also the reason why people want attention is because of the reassurance it offers their relationship, right? Like, it's attention because attention means that somebody cares about you enough to pay attention to you, right? Without rejecting you, without leaving you behind in the dust. Like, they care enough to pay attention to what you're doing. So it's really about the care and the respect that somebody else has for you, and knowing that you can be bad. Knowing that you can do something and make somebody annoyed, make somebody upset, and even though you are doing that, you're not going to get abandoned, right? You're not going to be left. It's about the security. It's about the attention. It's about feeling seen and knowing that you know where the boundaries of the relationship are fundamentally. And that when you push up against those boundaries, your partner is able enough to enforce what those boundaries are. So, like, I think there are some core things amongst all brats that make bratting what it is. But, like, what is in the forefront of somebody's mind cognitively can be different. Long distance relationship CBT is hilarious. I'm laughing my ass off right now. I'm glad it's entertaining for you. We live to give funny, comical ideas. What can we say? I did my first pet play. Oh, my first play party last week. Absolutely destroyed my poor nails. Chipped, low breaks, just sad panda. Yeah. Yeah, BDSM is hard on the nails. For sure. How do I encourage my partner more in playing? He says he's interested, but never puts in the work when it comes to personal understanding and knowledge. How can I help with this, specifically with pet play? Like, he's only listening right now because I brought it up. Oh, my dear Adius. I think that's how you say your name. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I relate to this so strongly. You have no idea. This is one of my... I have a broken piece of a hair clip, apparently, on my foot. I relate to this so strongly. I have gone through this exact struggle with a partner where I came up with a million ideas for, like, okay, you want to do BDSM with me. Well, if you want to do BDSM, here's how you can learn whatever it is, right? It could be pet play, bondage, impact play, whatever, you know? It could be a million things. And you could watch YouTube videos. You could read blogs. You could take a class online. You could take a class in person. You could go to a dungeon and watch people. You could, did I say podcasting already? You could listen to podcasts. You could read a book. You could go to a discussion group. You could find other local doms and talk to them about what they've done in the past. You could look on FetLife for resources on FetLife. You could practice on yourself. You like, there's a dozen different ways that you can get information about BDSM. And what it always came down to was, well, I'm pretty sure I know the basics. I know the safety things. I need to practice on you. Like, I need to do things with you and learn by doing. And I think that there's sort of a separation to be made between differences in learning style and not being willing to put the effort in. Everyone has a different learning style. Well, not, okay. There are kind of a core collection of different learning styles. Everyone has something, right? Some people are visual learners. Some people are auditory learners. Some people are kinesthetic learners, right? Like, everyone has their own way of learning. For me, I'm a pretty good, like, auditory and visual learner. I'm pretty flexible with my learning style. I just, like, learning doesn't really take a lot of, like, effort for me. And that's not to say that, like, it's easy or that I'll always absorb all the information. But I'm not, like, picky about how the information gets to me. You know, like, if it's auditory, I can make it work. If it's visual, I can make it work. But for a lot of people, they're very particular, maybe because they're neurodivergent or something else, about how they receive the information and how it sticks in their head. And so I think sometimes people can get in this mindset of, like, well, learning's hard for me, so I'm just not even going to try, right? Like, it's boring. I don't want to learn. It's stupid. It's dumb. I need to learn by myself. You know, I need to learn by doing. I think oftentimes there is a percentage of that is based in, like, ideas about masculinity and dominance, where learning from other people is like admitting weakness or defeat, or means you are less dominant because you have to ask for help or advice. So I think it's also worth kind of like thinking about how much of that is just like maybe stereotyping about like a dom has to be this, a dom has to be that. That's not necessarily actually true. But at some point, they got to be willing to learn something somehow. And this is my line, personally. And it's very hard when you're in a relationship. But at the end of the day, I think if somebody wants to be able to hit you, tie you up, and potentially physically and or mentally damage you, there is a modicum, a minimum level of effort that has to be put out to attempt to learn something first. That is not just, oh, let me practice on you. Like if you won't even go through the bother of practicing on a pillow first before you start flogging somebody in real life, I don't trust you as a dom. Because to me that says, I'm all ego. I'm all show. I don't really care about your comfort or safety. I care more about what makes me look good and requires the least amount of effort for me personally, because dominance and topping you is not about like a mutually beneficial experience. It's about like, what can I get away with that requires the least work out of me? And that's like a huge turnoff for me personally. I don't think people always literally have that mentality internally about like, you know, getting the most for the least amount of effort or like pushing other people's boundaries and comfort. But like, I think it's totally legitimate to like want to have a partner who is as invested as you are, because I think it can come across, even if it's not necessarily true, if a partner is not willing to do any of the like 12 different things I listed, from listening to a podcast, reading a book, going to a dungeon, taking a class, doing whatever. If they're not willing to do even that, how can I actually tell that they are interested in what they say they want to do? Especially when it's something that's important to me and it's my idea. Because if the only way you care about this is doing it to me, how do I actually really know that you care about it? It's just very strange to me. Like, I don't understand the mentality of like, oh, I want to do this, but I will absolutely not learn about it in any other way unless, one, you make me do it and find it for me, or like I get to practice on you. Like, it's a really big turnoff for me as a submissive when somebody as a dominant is not like a self-starter. And I have to like Hansel and Gretel a breadcrumb for them into learning anything about the thing they want to do. And I have to be the teacher, and I have to be the finder of information, and I have to regurgitate it to them. Like, that's a turnoff for me, partly because of my job, and also because it's like, why do I have to handhold you into how to dominate me to get you to dominate me? It sounds like you don't really want to dominate me. That's how it comes across. So, I don't know. I think that it's valid for you to want your partner to put in a level of effort before actually doing a scene with them. And it's fair to interpret that lack of effort without other explanation as disinterest or being flippant about your desires or needs. I think you can have a conversation about that, where maybe it's like insecurity, a learning style thing, they're not sure where to get the information. Give them an opportunity to explain where it's coming from. But like, I would just be too worried personally about having a dom do something to me that they didn't personally enjoy because they were never interested in learning about it or researching it in the first place, and it was like something I was making them doing. But I think there is a way, right? Like, find something that they would be willing to do. Like, whether it be a podcast or class, find something, some way they would be willing to try to learn about it before actually doing it with you. And if you can't, if they're just not willing, you kind of got to decide, what do I care about more? Doing pet play with this person in this relationship, accepting them where they are with their, in my mind, laziness, lack of motivation, lack of discipline or difficulties with learning or whatever it is, and accepting them where they're at and just trying to work around that myself? Or do I want to do this thing with somebody who actually takes it very seriously and is willing to learn and demonstrate that they care, not just because I'm telling them to and because I'm insisting on it, but because they are a self-starter, they are internally motivated, they want to do this because they want it, not just trying to make me happy. And I think oftentimes people will come down more on the side of, I want to be with this person, I'm going to try and meet them where they're at and accept that they're not really going to be a self-starter with learning about this. They're not really going to research it on their own. And then kind of calibrate based off of that how deep you're willing to go in a scene with them and what types of scenes you're willing to do with them based off of that. But like, honestly, at the end of the day, like, it really comes down to, like, you don't want to do BDSM with a partner who doesn't seem like they're fucking into it. Like, it's really, really hard if somebody's trying to just verbally convince me, oh, I want to do this, I'm into this, I want to do it. But they're not researching it, they're not looking into it, they're not learning about it. Like, you just saying, oh, I do it with you, and that's it, doesn't really give me a, like, that's not, like, you're just talking at that point. You're not showing me, you're just fucking talking. Yeah. And if you have to make your dom do things, like, make them learn first before they start hitting you, make them take a class, like, sometimes it's like they need that first nudge, and then afterwards they will feel more comfortable doing it on their own because now they know, oh, I'm not, like, gonna lose my dom card by doing this. But if after that they're still, like, allergic to learning, I'm going to be skeptical about that. It's like the enthusiastic consent mantra, but they don't even care, forget enthusiasm. Yeah, it's like, I'm not necessarily a big fan of, like, enthusiastic consent as, like, the universal, like, hell yeah, I totally want to do this, because I think that doesn't really, like, map perfectly onto, like, what a lot of people's preferences are for BDSM. But the spirit of it as a thing to start with, I agree with, of, like, if your partner isn't a, like, heck yeah, I want to do this thing with you, and then they're not showing you that heck yeah, like, that goes both ways, right? Like, affirmative or enthusiastic consent is not just about, like, the submissive or the bottom or the woman being like, yeah, I totally want your penis to be in me. Like, it's also about both parties being that way. All right. But I guess your question was really how to encourage my partner more in playing. So I guess to answer that part of it a little bit more, I think if you want to, like, coax your partner into maybe being more interested in it, I think it could be sending them maybe, like, pet play related, like, memes or TikToks, and be like, oh, that'd be funny, that'd be fun to try, right? It could be like watching BDSM themed movies together. Love and Leashes is a great example of this, because there is, like, I think one, if not two, different bits in there with, like, pet play or, like, leash related play. And that's a really good example. It could be maybe sharing, like, fantasies with them or talking about things you'd want to try to do together, maybe even without examples. There's a good anime/manga called, the chat's probably going to have to remind me on this one. I think it's Nanatakoru, I believe. That's another good one that has pet play in it as well. Or, yeah, I think just, like, sharing media and things that's related to pet play that you enjoy can kind of help explain why you're into it and kind of open up a conversation. But if they also don't really engage with that and they're like, oh, that's nice, and kind of just, like, leave it hanging and don't really want to, like, they don't show a level of curiosity, they don't really seem to get it, like, you know, nonverbal trumps verbal, you know, if they're saying, oh yeah, I totally do it with you, but they're not really doing anything to engage with it, learn about it, share your hobby interest with you. Because that's really what it is, right? Like if your partner, like take this out of a BDSM sphere, right? Like say your partner says they want to, I don't know, do cosplay with you, you know? And they say, oh yeah, cosplay sounds super cool. I totally want to do a cosplay with you. And then like when you send them cosplay TikToks or cosplay instructions or like, you know, cosplay resources, they go, oh, that's nice, kind of. And then they don't really ever engage with it. They, you know, you get supplies for them. You start trying to have conversations about what kind of couples cosplay you want to do together. And they go, oh, well, like maybe later. And they never really engage with it. Like at some point they're verbally saying they're into something, but then like with their behavior showing you they're not into it. Okay, apparently we're having a conversation about men and emotions I need to catch up on. I'm gonna try and get to that. All right, let me get to this men and emotions conversation because that sounds like it's interesting. What's the manga where a guy's friend finds his secret bondage gear stash and is into an aesthetic stress relief thing? Oh, I don't know what that is. Maybe somebody in the chat will know? Oh, my answers are always so good. Thank you, Katrissa. I'm glad it's appreciated. All right, I'm trying to figure out where this conversation started. I don't have an issue with men crying. I find it attractive when a man expresses his emotions, unless it's inappropriate. I don't think it makes someone weak. It's not logical. Yes. Yeah. Everyone should feel okay with expressing feelings. Guys do and definitely should have emotions, but it unfortunately does put off some women if you show too much emotion in my experience. Yeah, that's true. Like not all women are into that, but also I think it depends on like what emotions you're displaying, because I can imagine a scenario where it can make somebody feel unsafe, but yeah, we're just not really taught to handle that delicately, are we? Some women do have an issue with it because some women, like some men, are still heavily influenced by gender role norms. Yes, oh my god. The pick-me girls of the internet are far from being gone. Yup. There's a lot of women that are like, men should be men and women should be women, and by that I mean women should be hysterically emotional all the time and in the kitchen crying while making their husband dinner at exactly 5 p.m. on a Tuesday, and that's what being a woman is. And then men stoically drink after work to hide their feelings and say nothing of emotionality ever once their entire lives. They are allowed to shed a single tear silently after their wife gives birth to their first child, and not at any other time for any other reason. And it's like, god damn. Have you just thought about, because it's like people are not typically taught like emotional regulation, and they're taught that emotions are these big scary things that are dangerous and bad, and not like part of what makes the human experience so wonderful and unique. And so they kind of give themselves a lot of shit about emotions that's totally unwarranted and unnecessary, and it's just like, it's not good for anyone. If you think you need to cut yourself off from emotions and emotional displays to be a good dominant, don't. It's not only incorrect but damaging. Yes. Like, I don't know. Like, there are doms that will play pretend kind of with like, I don't have any feelings in this cold, hard, distant person that's unreachable and above you. And I'm like, it could even be part of a role play thing, right? They could be like a vampire or like, you know, some ancient creature that doesn't feel emotions. And so you know, it can be part of the role play. But outside of that, like, having emotions is part of what makes the BDSM experience so, like, rich and wonderful and fulfilling. Like, if you get rid of the feelings you feel about a scene, in my mind, you're cutting off half to, like, the majority of what makes the BDSM experience what it is. Especially as a dominant, where you're not even getting, like, the physical feedback necessarily of, like, the feeling of being in bondage physically, the feeling of being hit physically. Like, you're not getting that tactile sensation. So, yeah, just don't. Like, if you can't emotionally connect with your partner in a scene, I feel like you're really cutting yourself off from a lot of potential really positive experiences. Like, if you can't emotionally connect with your partner, like, what the fuck is the aftercare gonna be like? Like, no. Just give men estrogen. They'll feel 1,000 emotions they never felt before, and then they'll learn to cry for no reason one day. All right, new proposal. All men have to take estrogen for, what, like a month? Give them one cycle. I've not seen the Japanese movie Torture Club, but I have seen the movie R100. So does that count? Is that close enough? Grayson Perry's book, Descent of Man, completely changed what it means to be a man and the whole emotional constipation aspect that exists in a lot of men. Emotional constipation, that is certainly one way to put it. It's hard to have real intimacy without emotions, yes. Listen, I cry all of the time for almost no reason, occasionally. Like, I'll just think about my dog, and then I'll just start crying. Wild. That playfulness excites my dom and is a way to give permission. Okay, I think that's what that one's about, branding, I think. How do you navigate red flags and drama in the BDSM group you're involved in? Honestly, Rick, I don't know. Avoiding the people that create drama and red flags, finding other BDSM groups. Like, it's really hard, because if it's like, if the people in drama are kind of like the side characters over here, you can kind of just ignore them. But if it's like the leadership of the group is full of drama, then, like, unless you can avoid the leadership somehow, it's really hard to navigate. I honestly don't know. I get it. I know that men are conditioned to accept any sexual advance towards them, but there are reasons to not be a sexual partner or top for someone. It does not make you less of a man. Yes, that very much too. Yeah. Like, having emotions is not the same thing as being able to regulate their emotions. And I think a lot of people, men in particular, like, if they're not really taught tools for regulating emotions, just go, not having any emotions is safer. And so I will never visually present an emotion, maybe besides anger, and I will not discuss my feelings besides anger if I have to, because any other emotion is, like, dangerous, and if I engage with it on any level, I might just lose control. That seems to be the mentality for a lot of people. But emotions make BDSM so good. Like, yeah, the physical part of it is nice too, but, like, if you only ever had the physical part of it, I think you'd be missing a certain texture to it that makes it extra rewarding. Yeah, making your dom do things should not be your responsibility as a sub, in my opinion. Yeah. Like, if you have to handhold somebody through, like, here's the resources, here's the books, here's the classes, here's the summary, here's how to do a scene. Like, if you have to handhold them through every single step of the way, like, that's a big red flag. Oh, my partner plays a manly role, and I love that he shows his emotions on his sleeve. Yes. Mm-hmm. Emotions can actually be, like, honestly, like, fucking these guys just ignore what women say they want all the time. Like, if you look at most romance novels, the lead hero in a romance novel is almost never a completely unemotional cold, stone-faced man. Like, even with 50 Shades of Grey, even with Christian Grey, his character was not completely emotionless. It was buried underneath layers of trauma, and the point was that he needed, like, the beautiful, amazing, unique Anna to finally show him the error of his ways and get him to express himself outside of his cold, detached sadism. Like, a lot of women have a fantasy about actually helping men unlock their feelings and emotions. Not always in a healthy way, but the fantasy is there. What a lot of women actually really want, even from dominant men, is a man that is both dominant and masculine, but also sensitive, and the common thing is in touch with his feminine side, right? In touch with his feelings. That's what a lot of women want, is they want a man who can cry at a movie and say how they feel and be a sympathetic ear, be empathetic to their partners, not just like cold and stone-faced the entire time. Evie, of course you cry for a reason, like the reasons men feel the need to learn to suppress, but it takes too many thoughts and words to figure out the basis for those reasons. Oh yeah, to be clear, I should even say, because I don't want to perpetuate the stereotype of like, you can just cry for no reason. That's not true. It is always for a reason. Like, I cry when I think about my dog because I'm sad thinking about what happens when my dog is no longer in my life. I cry when I think about my dog because she makes me so happy. I'm so grateful she's in my life. That's why I cry. I can brush that away as being, I cry for no reason. There is a reason. It's not no reason. It's the reason seems silly and I don't want to say it out loud, which is a different thing. And we should be mindful. Everyone should be mindful to not dismiss those feelings as not being anything when they are there. It's just the reason behind them is actually like vulnerable to talk about. Oh, good question. Political T says, I have a new sub who wants, oh no, the chat just appeared. Okay, back up. I have a new sub who wants forced feminization. He's also a kitten. How do I explore this in sadism and bondage? My sub deserves to be happy and safe. Well, that is wonderful, Political T. I am so glad you want your sub to be happy and safe and you want to explore forced femme through sadism and bondage. If you haven't seen the interview that I did with Carly DeVille, it's on my interview playlist. We talked about like sissification and forced femme. How would I do this with bondage and sadism? The immediate idea I get in my head for like bondage is like bondage that forces like revealing something, right? Like bondage that would like pull a skirt up and like reveal that they're wearing like women's underwear, because that's like a classic like forced femme thing, right? Is like wearing women's underwear. So I think about something like that. I think about something that forces them to like display themselves physically, something that puts their arms behind their back maybe. Something that keeps their legs spread as well. That can be another way to kind of tap into that in terms of bondage. There's lots of like sissy bondage gear, like pink bondage gear. I've seen like O-ring gags where like it's like a silicone lips, like you know how like candy lips are, like candy wax lips. It's like that. But then it's like an open hole where it's like, you know, like painted red lips around the outside. That's another good one. Pink blindfolds, pink hoods, latex as well. That's like a pretty expensive investment for a first time thing. You can also get like really frilly gear. You can get stuff that looks like maid gear. Anything that involves like wearing really girly clothing and things that they can't remove, like maybe putting somebody in like a girly pink t-shirt but then doing like pink rope bondage over the top of it so they can't take the shirt off. You know, you're forced to wear this. You know, you can't take it off. Everyone knows what you really are when you wear this. Or again, lifting up the skirt, making them wear like a girly skirt or something that's like super, super short. Or you could even have them wear like frilly girly socks and then put like knee-high socks, and then put cuffs over the socks so they can't take the socks off, you know. And then same thing for around the wrist, right? You could have them wear like satin gloves, a little bit more of like a fancy girly sissy. You could have them wear like satin gloves or something, and then put the cuffs over that too so they can't take it off. Locks as well, though you got to be careful with locks because it's easy to lose the keys, and you probably want to get a set of locks where they're all keyed alike. But you know, locks can definitely enhance that feeling of like being trapped and being forced to present in a certain way. Chastity belt, all right, yes, of course. I love that. Evie, he loves pink, yes. Oh, chastity devices, of course. That's like so, I didn't even think to mention that because it's like so common, but absolutely that as well. In terms of the sadism part of it, right, I think combining a verbal element with the sadism can really help elevate, like reminding them it's for a forced femme thing, right? Like it could be in the direction of like you're punishing them because you caught them doing something that they shouldn't be doing, right? Like, oh my God, you're wearing my underwear? That's so disgusting. How could you? You're a man. You're not supposed to do that. And then you have to spank them or like paddle them because like, oh my God, it's unthinkable that you would even do that. Or maybe you're punishing them because, well, you know, if you're gonna dress like a dumb bitch, you're gonna be treated like a dumb bitch. And so, you know, you quiz them on something, they get an answer wrong, you punish them for it, something like that. Or just reminding them, like not even like doing a verbal punishment role play thing, but when you're doing the impact play, right? For every stroke of the cane or the paddle, whatever it is you're using, you have them say, I'm a sissy slut, right? Or I'm a dirty princess, or like whatever thing they want to be called, you know? And so it's like stroke, and then like, you know, you're hitting them, and then they have to say, like, I'm sorry, I'm such a silly girl, or like, you know, you hit them again, and then they have to say like, I'm sorry, like whatever phrase you come up with. Yeah. Trying to think if there's any other like key ideas I do with that in terms of like impact play. I think anything that kind of reminds them of their position, right? Because you could combine like the bondage with the impact play, right? Like you could have them wear like a pink G-string while you're doing the spanking, you know, something really revealing and really girly. Or you could have them, you know, they could do the impact play in a position that feels very revealing, right? And feels very, you know, vulnerable. I think an over the knee spanking is very reminiscent of that. Or maybe if you have them like upright, like maybe against a wall, or like a door well to not a door well, a door frame to take it back, right? Where they have to keep their legs spread and their arms open, right? Or you can even just give them the order, right? Of like when you're doing the spanking, the impact play in their butt, you know, keep your legs spread, like, you know, keep it right there. Yeah, and yeah, just don't, I'm not recommending doing anything in public for that, though I think a lot of people that are into stuff like this enjoy maybe the public, like, exhibitionist aspect of it, potentially. Like, you can do things, if you want to go out in public, like, do things under other layers of clothing. Like, a really big, like, sweatshirt like this, you can have them wear a fucking sissy maid outfit underneath this, and then cover it up with, like, a t-shirt and, like, wide leg pants, and no one would know the difference. I figured, what is that? Cat-kini? Cat-kini lingerie would be good since it's extremely girly and cat-themed. Oh yeah, anything with leopard print. Anything with leopard print is a great choice. Get it real 60s in there. Get it real 60s porno. You're so fast at churning out ideas, Evie. Well, it is my job. Can you talk about how subs can be pushy and even abusive to their dom, especially brats? They think they can be abusive based on only being a sub. We are past time right now, Acacia, and I'm like, I have like low blood sugar, I can tell right now. My hand's kind of like shaking a little bit, so I need to go eat food. But I will keep that in mind. We have had that conversation before in videos, but it's certainly something that we will keep on the mind for future content. Absolutely. Trying to think of like how else, because there's a lot of like sissy stuff that overlaps into like ABDL and baby things. And so I'm like, well, I could suggest things like that, but then I don't know if this person like also wants to be like a treated like a baby at the same time. But I don't know. I don't want to make any assumptions. Oh my gosh, thank you, Strawberry Shortcake. Thank you for the $20. Oh my gosh, you're so nice. Oh my gosh, another idea. Oh, Twixie, this is so good. Okay, you want to simulate period pain. Put a TENS unit on his stomach and then like make him like simulate. Okay, if you're going to be a woman, you have to go through your womanly transformation by experiencing your first period and then put a TENS unit on his fucking abs and then like make him experience period pain. Oh my God, that's so good. Oh, that's great. That's so good. But yeah, he's a sturdy boy. Commands. Yes, he loves me being hard on him. Thank you, Evie. Yes. Okay. Well, I think that's maybe enough ideas to start with. I love all the contributions in the chat. Yes, we love giving you all ideas. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So definitely, if you get to do any of these the next week, Political Tea, please check in and let us know how they go. Follow up. I would love to hear a follow-up story if you have any. We can keep like workshopping ideas. That would be so fun. I'm a little bit, he's like, nope, yeah. I mean, honestly, that's also like a really good dynamic is like you being like the little princess and then like berating him for like almost like you're like the princess and you're like humiliating him. Like, you know, in the way that like a little girl will make her dad do a tea party with her, but like you're doing that to him because you're the princess and you're in charge and he's gonna dress up in this wig and this costume and come to your tea party, damn it. Like, that can also be fun. Yes. Yes, and I'm a trans man, so it'd be really a mindfuck. Yes. Yes, exactly. Add the extra layers of mindfuckery. We love it. We love it. Yes. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much all for being here. I'm going to go eat some dinner. Go, if you haven't had enough water to drink today, go drink some water. Go have a little snacky snack. We do these live streams every Friday at 6 o'clock Pacific time. We're currently in daylight PTD as opposed to PST. So if you want to make sure you won't miss out in the future on these, go ahead and subscribe. Again, we do these every Friday. Also, by the way, remember, tomorrow on Patreon, we are doing our community movie night. We're going to be watching a BDSM documentary called A Wicked Eden. It is for any patron, any level, if you want to come join in and watch that with us. It's always a good time, good conversation. And yeah, first time stream, but long time subscriber. Always love your content and the viewpoint you bring on BDSM cases such as Manson and Hammer. Both examples of what not to do in the scene. Yes, I'm so glad that you're grateful for that. I love getting to do this as my job. I'm so happy to do this every day. Anyways, again, I'm out of time. Thank you all so much for being here and your super chats and your ideas and your conversations. I love getting to do these every week. They are so much fun. And it's not a secret that I am a sadist, Bonnie Prince Charlie, or Johnny Prince Charlie, as it so happens to be. I'm definitely a sadist. By the way, video probably I'm going to be doing this next week, though you guys probably won't see it for a while after that, probably for like a month after that. I'm going to be doing a video on submissive sadists and dominant masochists, so look out for that one. And yeah, again, I gotta go eat food. I will do one last Banditi goodbye for everyone. Bandita. Hi, sweetie girl. You want to come over here? Good girl. You gonna stretch it out first? No, we're gonna sit. Okay. Hi, sweet girl. Hi, my sweet baby. Hi. There's a smile. Look at you, sweet girl. Hi, honey. Do you want to say goodbye to everyone on the stream? Yeah, so cute. I'm so sweet. Such a good girl. Boop, boop, boop. All right. Goodbye. Goodbye. Banditi says goodbye. All right. We'll see you all next week. All right. She's a girl, by the way. My little sweetie Banditi. So sweet. All right. Good night, guys. Take care of yourselves. Have a fun weekend. Stay safe, and I will talk to you soon.